Well, it's a great honor to be here on stage with the father of reinforcement learning and many other new things that we're going to hear about today. But let me start with a very broad and general question. We've been hearing a lot of dystopian and utopian visions of AI. And as we transition in the afternoon to the big picture of the future, what are your views about human-centric or alien AI?
Thank you very much, Steve. I would like to present a view that AI is really much more human-centric than we usually think about. We usually think about more like us versus them. Are the machines going to make us obsolete? Every competition is man versus machine. But that's one view, but it's only one. I think it should be balanced. So is it us versus them, or is it more of us? Are we them? And so let's think about that. How does it starts with the name, like the name artificial intelligence says it's a different kind of intelligence. It's artificial, but really the field is defined. First of all, the idea is defined as trying to show abilities that are similar to humans. So really, even the definition, like the Turing test is all about, can we make a machine that can imitate a person? And many people define artificial intelligence as machines that can show abilities that normally we would call intelligent if they were done by people. And so look, the definition of our field is human-centric. It's defined in terms of humans. And so maybe we shouldn't have called it artificial intelligence. Maybe we should just call it intelligence. And I think it's really a mistake that's been haunting us, that all of us now think of it as artificial. We think of it as an engineering thing, or we don't think about it as a human thing. But I think AI is actually among the most human of all fields, most human-centric of all fields. Perhaps psychology is a little bit more human-centric, but it's like the study of humanity's abilities. Now, if you think about this is what is really happening today. It's not just a long-term philosophy thing, although I love philosophy, and I'm really glad that we have this it's just an opportunity to discuss philosophical things. I don't know, maybe I'm old, and so I'm permitted. We have sort of a philosophical title to this section. I think it's AJ's fault. And so I'm taking AJ's philosophical title as a chance to be somewhat philosophical. And it's not bad. Maybe he was trying to prevent something bad. Maybe he thought I would show slides with equations and something, which I do. But it was part of the setup for this talk was that there would be no slides. And so that's been prevented. The nice thing about philosophy is, we all feel we can do it, right? Anybody here feels they can at least participate in philosophizing about AI. So let's do that a little bit, and let's just note how human-centric it is. Like all the things that people are talking about, all the modern cutting-edge applications, like speech recognition, that's about getting people so they don't have to type and they can just get their thoughts onto paper and communicate it. And recognizing images is to save you from having to write words about your family vacation. You want to have your pictures automatically classified. And even things like language translation is about people communicating to each other. Web search is where AI is used. You look at all the places where AI is used, it's all about enhancing us as intelligent beings. Enhancing or sometimes entertaining us, but enhancement is the fact of how AI is used today, why it's commercially important, and it's not about it's not about beating us, it's about enhancing us. The game playing that you all know about, which is just it's really useful. We do the games because they give us a way of measuring the effectiveness of our AI systems. It's not because we want to make something that beats people. It's because it's really a methodology. And the point of the technology is not to beat people, but to enhance people and make them more effective at what they want to do.
I'm fascinated by this, and if I may, I want to ask some follow-up questions. So Based on what I just heard, it sounds like much of the work is that of the sensory cortex, by analogy, the interface to the modalities we're used to. And yet, the inner workings of these artifacts may be an alien intelligence, meaning we understand the inputs, we understand the outputs, we purposefully train them with data sets we understand and modalities we understand. But do we understand the inner workings? Would you say the core of reinforcement learning that is in any way a human-like thing?
The trick I'm going to use, maybe throughout all this, to answer Steve's questions, is to relate it to people. And so people also have a neural network, and they learn and they form some reflexes and some responses and some intuitions, and we have no understanding of how we do it or how others do it, and yet we trust them. So I really think it's the same for our machines. We don't understand how they work in detail. As someone said, we understand how they were made. But really, why do we understand people? And why do we trust people to be taxi drivers, to drive us around, or to fly our airplanes, or to make critical business decisions?
I'm not sure I do, actually.
Yeah. We sort of do and we don't. We come to, through experience and by the fact that they're risking their own lives as well, the taxi driver, I guess. But it's experience, and we learn what we can trust and what we can't trust. Now I want to go one step further, and if look at humanity, I'm saying AI is very human-centric. So we have to decide what is human, And if you look at humanity, what are we? What is our place in the universe? I mean, we're the animal that has become most technologically powerful. It's been the tool-using animal, the language-using animal. We have, throughout our history, built technology to enhance ourselves. I mean, going back to like really powerful things like a pencil and our eyeglasses. These are really super powerful. A language itself is our most important tool. And we are the tool-building animal. And we are the communicating, cooperating animal, collaborating animal. And our place in the universe is to build tools to make us better. And so what we're doing now with AI is exactly that. We are enhancing ourselves, just the way we did with eyeglasses, and just the way we did with language, to be smarter, to communicate better, to cooperate better. This is our place, and you can't separate the technology from the humanity.
So if I hear that has been the path to date of augmentation and extension of our senses and modalities, our capabilities. Do you believe research along the domain of autonomous agents, robotics, emotional systems will one day be a path to AGI? Is that, and if so, maybe I'll just ask, do you think that will come? And then if that does come, why does that end up being human-like versus alien but understandable?
Let's just start with the fact that there is AI research that's trying to make the system more autonomous, have its own goal systems, and that's it's not so obviously like enhancement. So I'd like to harken back to AJ's introduction. We talked about time and he talked about prediction. Prediction is really important. I agree with him. The only disagreement I might have about prediction is that I think it's more important than he does, and it's a more subtle and complex thing than that. But prediction it's appealing for this group because it's sort of something we all understand as business people and as ordinary people that if you could predict things better, that would be better. If I had better predictions, I could make better decisions. So it's clearly just enhancement. It's just prediction makes you able to make better decisions. But AI is moving beyond that, and it's integrating the decision making and the goals in with the prediction. And this is a slightly more. This is more. Well, I guess it is more scary, but I'm trying to claim that it's not scary because we have the same problems also with people again. Like when you raise kids, they're autonomous, and you have to worry about what goals they have. and yeah, you try to raise kids so that they aren't at least counterproductive to what you want. But at the same time, it's valuable that they're not entirely under your control. Yeah, reinforcement learning, my area of specialty is all about building up something like an emotional system and absolutely autonomy in decision making. So it's close to my heart.
So you mentioned goals a couple times. It seems like that may be a key element to bootstrap this whole process. And it also, I see the mapping to reinforcement learning, whether you're thinking of the gameplay metaphor we can all understand, intermediate goals, long-term goals, reinforcement across the chain. Is that your opinion as well, that that will be the path to higher and higher levels of intelligence?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have higher and higher, more and more abstract goals, and that's an important part of it. You can't really have goals without having a system that cares about achieving its goals, which means really something akin to emotional responses. So these things fit together in autonomy.
Do we face, as humans, a vernacular gap there, where often folks in the room might hear words like goals or caring and wonder if we're just describing some sort of, humanocentric overlay, or if that actually is what's going on, and we're just going to learn gradations of these, that there's something finer grained than just human-level caring, human-level goal setting. There's a whole spectrum?
Now, goals is just a simple word, but you can be misled by it as such a simple word. So the only way to handle that is to replace it with longer phrases like goal-seekingness or purposiveness. Purpose I like. That's only a few more syllables. So the general idea of purpose, of caring about the outcomes or optimize your outcomes, being able to influence things towards one thing rather than another, obviously this is essential to intelligence. If you had just something that could sit there and predict, it could be very smart in a sense, but it wouldn't be nearly as powerful as something that would act on its predictions and which had a goal that it was trying to achieve. And I tend to define it that way. Now, before we run out of time, I want to mention one more thing about the general thing of worrying about AI, because I've said that it's much more human-centric than most of our press stories and our worries reflect. But still, I have to acknowledge that there are these worries. It's really almost overwhelming in the press coverage of AI that it's us versus them. And are we going to be obsolete? And we're going to be, and hasn't happened yet, and all things like that. And I think that is, as I said, I think that's a mistaken way to think about it. It has to be at least balanced by the other point of view, that it's us being enhanced, and it'll be us making our former selves obsolete. But there is a tendency, I have to acknowledge there is this tendency to classify it as us versus them. So we have to ask why that is. Now, I've blamed it a little bit on the name. We've chosen a name which makes us sound alien, which makes the AI sound alien, because we're calling it artificial intelligence. But it's not just the name. I think it's a little bit deeper than that, and I think it's something we can all relate to as people, and that is, imagine that so what I would say is that we are making new people, a new kind of people that are designed, okay? And so what's happening with the fear is this is the normal human response to a new kind of people. Like over and over again, we learn, we need a new class of people, slightly different, maybe a slightly different color or a different religion, and we get scared of them. We have fear of them because they're different, and what do you always see? That they're going to take over. It's not that we're being bad, it's just that they're going to take over. I don't know whether it's the native people of the place you've arrived at, or in the West, fear of Japan, and I'm sure, or China, the different kind of people over there. It's a very natural human thing to be fearful of others that are slightly different from us. And yet it's also human, particularly in Canada, to find a way to celebrate diversity and welcome the others, celebrate their accomplishments, and not just as they're doing well, so that's bad for us, but they're doing well and they are like us. And I think that's what we have to get over with our machines. So AlphaGo has been a really interesting test case. AlphaGo, in the West, it still tends to be presented as man versus machine. But in the Go community, it was like, here's this amazing system, amazing machine that can understand Go. It's joining us in the infinite task of understanding this elegant game. And so the response to the AlphaGo beating the world champion was that there was enormous, greater interest in Go, and more Go boards were sold than ever before. And when you look at many of the pro players would say, AlphaGo, it's very interesting. He's got these new moves, and he's teaching us. We are learning about Go from the machine, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And so I think we have to find a way to welcome this different kind of people, and their strengths will be different from ours. They will be much more diverse. And but why can't we celebrate that? I think as Canadians we should celebrate diversity. Yay!
How does this become Canadian? Do we have to end, or do we have time for a follow-up? No, I think we have some time. Yeah. So this is a great segue to AlphaGo, and I especially wanted to get your thoughts on AlphaGo Zero. And for those, I'm sure most of you know this in the room, but the newest version learned how to play, interestingly, by not studying human moves, but starting from just de novo. Here are the rules of the game, go to town. And within 72 hours, trained itself to a state where it beat the old AlphaGo 100 to 0. And correct me if I got any of that wrong. My question to you is, throwing away the human training set seemed to be the way to make a better product. How does that fit in this framework? In other words, it did so much better by ignoring the humans, right? They, if anything, held it back.
We need scalable methods. Steve and I both like to show, and we didn't do it today, and no one did it today, I'm surprised. No one showed the exponential growth of computer power.
Oh, I did. That was my opening slide. Yeah. Moore's Law.
I came in just a minute late. Yeah. But I'm glad you did. Because, and it's kind of mundane now, but it's a profound effect, and it's hard for us to recognize how profound it is. We need methods that will scale with computer power. I mean, that's what I mean by it. I don't mean that they scale with problem size. I mean they will scale with computer power. You get more computer power, you can have a more effective system. And so we have to ask, is computer power the bottleneck of your strategy or not? So learning from human training sets, the bottleneck pretty soon becomes your training set.
But I want to try this question at a slightly different angle. So early work on computer chess found that having the grandmaster accentuated by the computer was not nearly as good as just use of the computer. And if I understood the latest work with AlphaGo Zero, it did better without the encumbrance of the human training cycle. And doing adversarial learning with other computers just philosophically seems very foreign to what you were just talking about, that it's a humanocentric approach.
Well, not really. We as humans, we don't learn really. We learn in school. We learn a little bit in school. But we learn most about how the world works, when we're very, very young and probably can't even talk yet. So we learn by trial and error. The systems that were, I should say the word reinforcement learning, which is my area of expertise, my favorite subject kind of learning. And reinforcement learning is what is learned in these what is used in these self-play methods, where you get to try out many, many games. And so it's not learning from people. It's learning in the same way that people do. It is very human-like, this learning from trying. It's true that in game playing, you can play massive amount of experimentation, and these methods do leverage that. But the general idea of trial and error is it doesn't require simulations. Now let me just say one more thing about that, which is games are special just for this reason, because we have the rules of the game that we can build them in, and so we know how they work. And we really need I forget who talked about like the vase on the table and how it was about to fall off. So we know the way the physics of the world, and we know how objects move. And we need to be able to plan. We need to be like AlphaGo for the real world. And for that, you have to replace the moves of the game, the rules of the game, with the rules of the world. What are the laws of physics? And more important than the laws of physics are intuitive things like, well, if I hit my friend, they might hit me back. Okay, that's not laws of physics. Or if I scream, maybe my caregiver will come and help me. So we need to learn how the world works, and then we need to be able to plan with those things the way we can plan so well in chess and in Go and in poker as well.
So I'm circling back with the time we have left. I do like this larger philosophical question about AI futures, and I love this criticism of dystopian views of suddenly this alien intelligence comes out of nowhere and scares us and takes our jobs and does whatever, as opposed to the notion that you grew up with them, like a parent. And that parenting analogy, to me, is powerful because if you think of parenting the next generation, you can ask the question, would you want your grandchildren to be smarter and healthier than you, metaphorically, right? And then I think the human sentiment shifts from supremacy, like we are the endpoint of evolution, the buck stops here, to symbolic immortality. That I think is what we are as agents for a culture and humanity, is to advance the ball. And if we could parent something greater than ourselves, I think we would take great pride in that. I know there's a lot of people in the world in the room working on that.
Very well said, Steve. Let's take pride in the accomplishments of the things we create collectively as a society.
Thank you very much.